This time on Filmmaker, we are looking at Disney Animation Studios films of the 2000s. The 2000s were a decade of experimentation for Disney. After several changes behind the scenes, a new team was trying to find a new path, and there were a lot of ups and downs on that road. With 12 films in just 10 years, Disney was really throwing everything at the wall. So let's take a look at what stuck and count them down. Number 12, Home on the Range. The best voice actors become their roles. You might notice them at first, but after a few lines, you totally buy them as whatever animated animal or princess or whatever it is that they're playing. With Roseanne Barr, the opposite is true. All you can picture is her sitting behind a mic, stumbling her way through the film. And it doesn't help that it's one of the weakest scripts Disney has produced. The jokes go from a bit too silly to a bit too adult, while never being in danger of getting drowned out by laughs. Number 11, Brother Bear. Disney tried some interesting things here, but they don't quite work. There's a change in screen perspective near the start that kind of makes you just check your settings, and an art style that looks a little bit like the Canadian cartoons of the 80s. The story's small but fine, and the voices are all pretty okay, especially Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis doing kind of a take on their Bob and Doug McKenzie shtick in moose form, but it's never enough to really make the movie work, and the music is very tough to sit through. Number 10, Bolt. Bolt is a great example of Disney trying to be something that it isn't. They go for the star power with John Travolta and Miley Cyrus voicing two of the leads, but neither one feels like the right fit. There's also an action movie / road trip plot that all feels very much like early DreamWorks. Bits do work. Rhino the Hamster, for example, will be a favorite for kids, but it all feels a bit more interested in being sleek and glossy than it does in having heart. Number 9, Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs' claim to fame was its technology. It combined CG animation with real-world backgrounds to make something that admittedly looked pretty cool on a huge screen in the year 2000, but it has not aged well. The story also loses a few points for feeling a smidge too close to Land Before Time, which for my money is a far better film. That said, this movie has dinosaurs, and dinosaurs are awesome. Number 8, Chicken Little. Chicken Little is the height of Disney's attempts to try to emulate its growing competition of the 2000s. The story is way too high concept, and the animation and characters don't feel quite at home under the Disney brand, but some of the jokes do work, and it keeps up a really crisp pace from top to bottom. It is a case of a wonky script being mostly saved by some pretty decent voice acting. It's got a really bad rep, but it's not that bad of a film. Number 7, Fantasia 2000. By their very nature, Fantasia films are always going to be a mixed bag. It might be even a bit more true for this one than it was for the original. The high point is a classic New York story set to Rhapsody in Blue, and a happy ending version of The Steadfast Tin Soldier. The others are a mishmash of pretty good to maybe not quite as good. It's a nice piece of classy pop art that brings something different to its audience, but doesn't reach the heights of the original. Number 6, Treasure Planet. Treasure Island has no shortage of retellings, but Treasure Planet certainly does enough to put its own stamp on the concept. It has a sleek steampunk feel that mostly works, and some solid performances from 3 named actors, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and David Hyde Pierce, as well as regular old 2 named actor, Martin Short. It takes 2 great things in pirate and space and mushes them together to make a pretty solid Reese's Pieces of a movie. Number 5, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. For years, I thought this movie was made by Don Bluth of American Tail and Secret of NIMH fame, which is maybe the biggest compliment you can give to an animated film. It's a terrific-looking Jules Verne-esque adventure with a killer voice cast led by the always great Michael J. Fox and Jim Varney in his final role. The payoff of the actual Kingdom of Atlantis could have been bigger, and the intrigue's never quite that intriguing, but the journey is a lot of fun. Number 4, Meet the Robinsons. Meet the Robinsons is the most underrated Disney film. A lot of people totally miss this gem or remember it being worse than it is. What it is a quirky aesthetic and narrative mashup of the past and the future that has a sad but hilarious villain, 2 pockets full of absurd humor, and a great message about embracing failure. This movie is an absolute gem that deserves a second watch. Number 3, The Emperor's New Groove. The Emperor's New Groove is such a surprising film. The sensibility is often more Animaniacs than it is Disney, and that is a high compliment indeed. Yes, the David Spade voice Zuko can be a little bit grating, but the delightfully weird dynamic of Yzma and Patrick Warburton's Kronk more than carry the load. It was one of the best surprises to come out of Disney's experimentation in the 2000s. Number 2, Lilo and Stitch. This is one of the most realistic feeling films about sisters that has ever been made, even if it has a blue and purple alien fugitive at its center. Lilo is such a terrific oddball outcast, and the humor with which she's written is just perfect. Her collection of photos of fat tourists, for example, or the macabre games that she plays with her dolls, it certainly helps that Stitch is also great and the alien plot works well, but what really puts this movie over the top is the fact that the humans at the core feel like three-dimensional humans. Number 1, The Princess and the Frog. After a decade of experimenting and trying to figure out new formulas, Disney ended that decade by just going back to basics. Princess and the Frog is classic Disney through and through. The hand-drawn art is beautiful, the villain's memorable, the sidekicks are lovable, and it centers around a love story imbued with a healthy dose of magic. It helps that it takes a big chunk of its personality from the setting in New Orleans, which also makes for some unique and fantastic music. This film was the spark that set up Disney for its huge comeback in the 2010s. And that is it. It was such a weird decade for Disney, so I know a lot of you are going to have very different lists, but please share those in the comments and maybe like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you all next time.